Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the really fun and informative podcast of Everyday Intuition. I'm your host, Brandon Russ. With me, as always, is TC, our producer. Tracey, how are you?
It's going well. How's it going with you guys?
So far, so good. And joining us this time is none other than my dad, because this is kind of going to be a little bit of a root show, if you will. If you really want to call in the spiritual meeting, just not the selfish part of, hey, I want to have my dad on a podcast, and it's my podcast, I can do whatever the hell I want. There's that, but then there's also the part of the root and kind of where we came from and how we grow, how we interact, how we choose things in life, how we grow personally. It all stems from the root. So, Dad, also known as Nate the Great, how are you?
I'm good.
You're 20 feet away from me in another room because we're still sort of quarantining.
That makes me really good.
It's good to see you. And without further ado, we're going to set the tone early with this, and I'm going to show my shirt and my dad's shirt, and it's a total dad joke, as it's the chords for DAD. That is what you can expect for the rest of the show right off the bat. Tracey has no idea what she's actually getting herself into, but she's going to enjoy it thoroughly, I have a feeling. Are you okay with this, Tracey? Is this your first season or your last show?
Oh, I know, Nate. I'm pretty well seasoned.
I know, great.
I still can't get over that unicorn cup, though.
Listen, quit knocking this. You guys, if you don't know the story, and I haven't mentioned it or you haven't heard me say it and other things, this was totally, how like some people like drunk eBay, or they, maniacally buy things on Amazon. This sat in my like delete cart forever. And I'm like, oh, save for later, save for later, save for later. Well, one of these times I had to buy something and I forgot to take it out. I forgot to kind of move it along. And then all of a sudden, I think it ended up in my cart to begin with, because I was like, oh my gosh, I should so get this unicorn mug for somebody. It'd be a great gag gift. Like, I seriously think it sat in my cart for about 9 months, because I was like, I wanted like the coolest Christmas, like, grab bag, right? And then it ends up and then when I opened it, I'm like, I'm not giving that up.
I could just see myself somehow getting impaled or injured with that cup.
Well, listen, you know my dexterity. I think we're both a little surprised that I still have both eyes intact. Let's not poke out the moneymakers today, will you? So great. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do a couple of different things. And, part of the reason to have my dad on top of, I get my hysterical sense of humor from him. Anyways, the other part of this is that,
oh, sorry.
Was that a laugh track? Can I add that in later?
My timing was off.
Hey, you know what the key to comedy is?
Timing!
Timing! So, but to understand kind of the root and and how I was brought up, and understand kind of how the root works with what you eventually do in life and succeed in life and go back to in challenging times and that sort of thing. The root's incredibly important for you to be able to really kind of know where you come from. And the root incorporates a whole bunch of things. It includes everything from, the physical body that you're put into, the socioeconomic conditions that you're brought into, the opportunities that you have, the challenges that you have, the cycles that the family might have. There's a whole bunch of things that the root really represents. And as you go along and you talk about things like this as a root and grow and develop an everyday intuition, the family is actually part of your day-to-day life, whether you talk to them or not. And I watch a lot of people just like, that's my sister, that's my brother, that's my whatever. And then you're like, kind of push them away a little bit. They're still part of your path for a reason. And there's lessons in it. And there's ways that you can recognize that your strength is actually garnered from it as well. So I'm joking around about my keen sense of humor, my impeccable timing, my incredibly flashy delivery. You want me to just keep going, Dad? You gonna jump in there at some point? But I get a lot of it from my dad. And I can't tell you how many times I met somebody who I knew growing up, like just knew her forever. And I didn't see her for a long time, and she didn't see me with a beard. And I really only grew the beard about 2.5 years ago. And she hadn't seen me, and she stood there and she looked at me and she goes, all I can see is your father now with your beard. Like, that's all she kept saying. And I was like, Dad, right out of the gate, and I'm going to have Tracey ask you some questions because I think that's kind of the fun way to go about this. When did you start growing a beard? How old were you?
Well, it must have been about, probably a dozen years ago, maybe 13 years ago.
How old were you 13 years ago?
I was just this shy of 60. I was doing plays with Pekin Players in Cohoes.
Okay.
And when you do Fiddler on the Roof, you need to look the part. So I grew a beard. And I've had it ever since then. Well, pretty much.
It's funny. So you only grew it. So basically, you're a method actor, which is why you grew the beard.
Well, I grew the beard because I needed it for being one of the fathers in the town, you know. And
So
you're in a Russian town. Russian town. You have to look like you're a seafaring man, and that's what I was, you know. So I started growing the beard then. I've always had a mustache. Always had a mustache, forever and ever. When I was
see, I couldn't do a mustache. Like I just can't do it. I just like, even here, if you said to me, like if Gillette came to me and said, Brandon, your beard's your trigger, your beard is your calling card now, but we're gonna pay you $1 million to shave it off for a commercial, I'd be like, but the mustache has to go too. Like, that's non-negotiable to me. Like, I am not gonna go with just a mustache. Am I wrong with this? Like, how did you do just a mustache for all those years?
I must ask you to put the question.
I was waiting for that. I must ask you one more question.
Well, to answer your question, I grew the mustache, and then I tried to shave it off, and your mother objected. So I grew it back again. So every time I'd get the bug about every 4 or 5 years to shave it off, and she'd go, "Oh, you've got the mustache off? Not good." So I had to grow it back.
So basically, you were in the doghouse when you were clean shaven.
Yeah, pretty much. I look young.
You had to shave it for later.
Yeah, no, it's like
I don't look young anymore. You know, it's just,
that's all relative, Dad. Though. There you go. Well, I know Tracey's got more questions for you.
Good.
Take it away, Tracey.
All right. So Nate, where are you originally from?
I grew up in a little town called St. Paul, Minnesota. Way back when, long, long time ago. I remember winters there where it was so cold that the cars even froze. You don't have that too much around this area where it's that cold. I remember one time Natalie had said to me, we had a patch of bad weather for weeks and weeks on end, and it snowed and snowed and snowed. And she said to me one day, she says, "Dad, is that what it's like out in Minnesota every winter?" I said, "Yep." And she goes, "I ain't moving there."
She was smart with that. So you literally went uphill both ways in a snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Going to school every day. 5 miles uphill both ways. Going there and coming back. Actually, I could take a bus once in a while, but I'd rather walk.
So how many siblings do you have, and what was family life like for you there?
Well, I had 8 brothers and sisters, and if you didn't make it to the table, you didn't eat much. So there was always a feast of who got there first. But no, it was interesting growing up. We were poor, didn't have anything. 8 brothers and sisters. 2 of them were born after I left home, and when I went into the Navy, I joined the Navy after getting out of high school, and that got me an interesting take on life, because I learned a lot more in 9 years active than I ever did, in school for the whole time I was there. So,
what are some favorite calls to port? Is that the right term?
places that I went?
Yeah.
I was in the,
PG-13. PG-13.
oh, it's all PG-13. I was a
Then you didn't do it right.
I was a good sailor. I didn't even get a tattoo. I was tattooless.
That's kind of weird. Why didn't you ever get a tattoo?
Because I don't like having little needles stuck in me forever.
Oh, so you're a wimp. Me
Pretty
neither.
much.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not doing it. No way.
I can't see putting myself through any torture. I mean, if I was gonna have it, it would probably be ... dash ... We're just, if I have
Are you
to,
done yet? We
I
just started with the first S. We're not even done with the first S yet.
but
You're asking me if we're done.
instead of showing my dad, I'd be showing my help me. I need help. SOS.
SOS and Morse code. But what were your favorite places?
The one place that I went to was the Seychelles Islands. It's in the middle of the Pacific. Well, it's not in the Pacific. It's over in the Indian Ocean.
I was going to say it's closer to the Indian.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It's straight up from Madagascar.
Oh, nice. Off the coast of Africa.
Yeah, it was absolutely the best place I'd ever been. You could stand there and look into the ocean. It was so clear.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. And growing up, we had this box of like coins.
Yeah.
Every time he went into port, he would get, it might have been a penny or a shilling or a shekel or whatever the hell it is that you got in that, in each one of them, but you kept them. And there was like easily 60 countries in there.
Yep.
You had some paper money. I think you had stuff from Brazil. I think you had, certainly India. You spent a lot of time in Central America too, right?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
And through the Panama Canal, that was one of the other interesting places that I went through. We traveled on the ship. We actually went down all the way down to the tip of South America, and then came back up the other side. Another place that we stopped in was Lima, Peru. Very, very, very nice place to be. I sang on the stage there. Everybody said I sounded fantastic, and they were it was kind of funny because I said, it was a bar. What are you doing? We were having a couple of drinks, and I got up there and sang Frankie's song. It was fun.
PG-13. Here we go.
It was.
Here we go.
So, what would the Navy be without a drinking story? I mean, come on.
So let's.
I didn't even say scold.
So you got lit in Lima, Peru, and then sang what would then become karaoke.
It didn't take but one or two beers. I was fine. I'd get up and sing.
Well, clearly you don't have any tattoos, so of course you're going to be a 2-beer.
If I was a 3-beer, that'd be the one I'd be spilling.
Oh, there you go.
And that's sacrilegious to spill beer in the Navy, so.
Yeah.
True story.
It's true. So is the Navy, Nate, then how you came to New York?
Well, funny thing on the way to being stationed in Newport, Rhode Island, there's a college that's there that's Save Regina College, and that's where I met Brandon's mother, Terry. We met in 1969. In fact, it was September 25th, and people go, how do you remember that? I just do.
That was the day she bailed you out.
Yeah. And we just bailed.
I'm laughing because it's sort of true.
Oh, it wasn't. I bailed her out. She was underage, drinking in a bar. So
PG-13, here we go.
But,
so you're in the Navy picking up underage girls. Keep going, Nate.
She wasn't underage at that point. She was still of legal age. She wasn't a young teenager.
But she couldn't drink.
She couldn't drink, but that's all right.
Okay. So that's what you mean by
they
underage.
they let him drink then because it was a different time back then. They wanted the customers and the business, so it was all right. But no, I met your mother then, and we ended up getting married a couple years later, and that's how I ended up coming to New York, because I stayed until 1974, and we got out together. Your mother says she was never a Navy wife. She wanted to be away from there. So we ended up coming back to New York, and I went to work in the family store selling jewelry. So
Oh, very cool. And where was that located?
in Cohoes.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a jewelry store for many years that my mother's family had.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that defined a lot for me too. I mean, my parents were always at work. My dad was always at work.
Yeah.
So there's some of that in the root as well. But one thing back on the whole marriage thing, how many years have you guys been married this year?
Well, week from Friday, the 19th or the Juneteenth, it's going to be 49 years.
49 years, and I'm 47. I always test the math just to make sure we're
Is that how old you are?
just well, up until when we did the DNA test, you weren't even sure I was yours. Until I grew the beard, you weren't really sure. Only kidding. Only kidding.
meanwhile, setting up, you're both scratching your head in the same manner. I couldn't tell at all that you were related.
Yeah, there's a couple of traits. There's a couple of traits.
Really?
Right there, right there. So Nate, how many kids do you have?
I got 3 wonderful kids, and they're all very special in their own way. Brandon goes without saying, and then there's
I'm absolutely your favorite son.
Natalie. Natalie is my second child, and she's a nurse, and Chandra is in healthcare. She's the youngest, and I I've always been asked by people about, when I tell people that Brandon's a medium, I tell them the other joke about, he's actually not an extra large, but just a medium, and they go,
Perfect.
"Oh, really?
Timing.
Doesn't that bother you?" And I go, "Why should it bother me?" I said, "He's really good at being a medium. He gets a lot of things, he tells people a lot of
What were they
things
expecting?
about that."
Just out of curiosity, what were they expecting? Like, as in, like, I don't know how we went wrong.
I think most people are, but most people are scared of mediums.
Especially one like me if I'm running downhill. But
But you've got a wealth of information.
yeah, but what do you think? Like, I mean, you know the person, and I don't want you to call them out or anything here, but you know their personality. Why do you think that they would have had a bias in that moment? Like, were they trying to hold you accountable? Like, you went and raised a medium? Like, did they look at it like it was your fault? Like, I might as well have been left-handed?
Oh, I don't feel that way at all. I think it's more like they're not understanding you as a medium, period, or anybody as a medium.
Right.
They don't think that it's anything. They think it's bogus. It's not real.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Until they have somebody close past to them and they're like, do you think you could kind of do that for me? Or whatever. But it's legitimate. I mean, it's, and again, that's also kind of base and root where, in the grand scheme of things, they might not have, there's a bias that's projected there, whether it's, what they've learned, their religious connotation, their belief system. And, their belief system may fully gravitate towards it, but then may also be like, boy, my grandmother used to say that stuff is like voodoo, or it's, whatever the case may be. Where in my case, I found that you and mom, embraced it. I think your approach was much more of like, I don't have to understand it, right? You were just like, okay, that's cool. But you also have some stories. And then mom was very much, she would read a lot of Greeley books. She would read, she went to local mediums when she was growing up. Like, I mean, she was a little bit differently embracing, but it's, but she also had the bias of knowing some of those other people and thinking, well, you're not them. Where you came into it as in like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but okay, let's run with that. So yeah, I think you guys both had a weird supportive way of saying, well, that's cool, but whatever, which was kind of what I needed through most of this. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, it's like, you know, your mother would say to me, well, you just didn't realize it. I said, I realized it. I just figured it was my part to just be there. That's all I needed to do. I mean, I wasn't questioning it.
You didn't overthink it.
Yeah, I wasn't counteracting anything that happened with you. Although there were times that, the time when you told one of your teachers about their mother that had recently passed away, and you said something to the teacher, wasn't it? The grandmother or the mother?
Yeah. I mean, that's it's funny because I've been retelling this story a little bit because people always ask you, like, have you always had this? And I really have. I mean, it's just, one way or another, I would just kind of be like, that's kind of weird that you would say that, or funny you should say that. But I was in third grade and the teacher was out for a week and we had a substitute teacher and everybody's like, substitute teacher, we love this. One movie after another. But then when the teacher returned, I just went up to her desk and I said, hey, I'm just going to say Mary Jane. So, I don't remember what her actual name was. Mary Jane, loves that you're back at work today. Loves that you're back teaching today. This is what you love to do, or something like that. And her face just turned like white as a ghost. By the way, they're never white as a ghost, but whatever. And she was like crying. I know, if there's ever a white as a, yeah, right, there you go. It's like, you've got a glow. It's more of a glow. It's more of like whatever. But she like just turned like this pale, like whatever. I could tell whatever I said like moved her, upset her. Next thing I know, I'm in the principal's office. My mom's on speakerphone. And they're going, why would you say that to her? And I'm like, why would I say what? I just felt compelled to, I didn't say the word compelled. Never say the word compel to a nun. But I just felt the need to say that to her, like as in comfort. I wasn't trying to be obnoxious about it. I just felt the need to say that. So that's stuff that like my parents had to deal with.
So then I take it, Nate, my next question was going to be, what tradition did your family follow? But it sounds like that Brandon was and company were born and raised in the Catholic tradition. Just curious about how, in the time frame that you're talking about in the 60s, 70s with the Catholic Church, did that seem to maybe hamper or help the way in which that you and Terry chose to raise Brandon and were open to the fact of he was gifted?
Well, I don't think that really determined it, because I wasn't, I was Lutheran. I was raised as a Lutheran, and my parents didn't go to church. They, you might get them to go to Easter. That's about it. They didn't even go for Christmas or any other thing, but Easter they could go. And of course, if any babies came along, they went along and got them baptized, and if they thought about it. But that really
with whiskey and licorice.
Yeah, but it wasn't that big of a deal, when I was a kid. I actually ended up, when I was a youngster, I'd go to any other church that I could with friends, and ended up going to the Baptist church for a while. And I was 16 years old, I think. And I started doing things in the Baptist church. In fact, I had started earlier and then they had a summer camp out in Minnesota that I'd go and spend 2 weeks, and then I ended up being a counselor doing it. So when I met Terry, the thing came about whether I was going to convert to be a Catholic. And I said to her, the Lutheran church has got the same God as the Catholic church, right? And she said, pretty much. And I went, well, okay, I can do that. So I went through some courses.
Silly progressive, you.
I know. I went through some courses with a commander in the Navy, who was a chaplain. He was a very nice man. He gave me some words to wisdom, and I held to those all these years. And don't ask me what they are because I can't share them with you. So, Brandon. But anyway,
I don't want to know.
And so I converted to being a Catholic before we got married. So I haven't been in the church for that long. And at that point, what were we going through? We were going through the word is escaping me.
Oh, so you escaped from one religion. It sounds like you were really hedging your bets before you met Mom. Lutheran, Baptist, and then Catholic came along. Like, is that, I don't know. Well, would you have, and again, you don't have to answer this, but was she very like staunch to be like, if you don't become a Catholic, we can't get married, or?
Oh no, that really didn't enter into it. What the whole thing was is that if we were united in that, we could be united in how we raised any children that we may have, and that seemed the more plausible. Trust me, I think about things a whole lot. I reason through them, and I was
once again, that's so Lutheran of you.
Well,
Age of reasoning.
How
do you like that one there, social studies teacher?
That's why Garrison Keeler and I really hit it off. I mean,
Well, he was a Lutheran, right?
He was a Lutheran, yeah.
And he was always talking about Minnesota all the time. So
all the kids are above average, so But
that's about right, by the way. Just to let you know, like in full, and if you stepped on the outside and looked in, you'd be like, above average. Good job. Good job, Dad. Good job by you.
So Nate, have you ever had any encounters with spirit or any spiritual experiences?
Yes,
and could you elaborate on them?
Sure. I had a buddy of mine. We were going to school in Key West, Florida, and he wanted to go to Oklahoma and get married. And I said to him, I says, well, I'll travel with you so that we could get you there. I said, and then I'll fly home to Minnesota because we had a couple weeks off. We were in between our schools that we were going to down there. And he goes, oh, great. So he had a car. So we get in it. And don't you know, a couple 300 miles down the road, it conks out on us. So then we have to go get another mode of transportation. And
this story is great.
He didn't have any money. My buddy Ron, he didn't have any money. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, I said, well, let's look and see if we can buy a car because we're there right in a lot. So we ended up buying this little Nash Rambler. And I mean, it was, I don't know, $300 and we were back on the road, right? Well, blew a rod about 100 miles down the road and we had to hitchhike the rest of the way because neither one of us had any money, period. So we ended up hitchhiking and we hitchhiked all the way up to Alabama. And then we got another ride with some other people that were in a
you got to tell about the limo though.
In the van. Well, the limo's the last one, but we were in a van with these two hippies. And
so the mystery machine picks you up.
I turned around. Well, the dog is sitting there in the back, and he's he just really
Scooby-Doo.
and I'm going. Well, wait a minute. I said to Ron, I go, we have to get out of this van. I said we have to get out.
Were they high? Were they smoking pot?
I said I smell something I don't normally smell. I said whatever it was they were drinking or.
They were smoking pot, Dad.
Yeah,
you were in the late 60s and a van pulled over with long hair and they picked you up. That was pot, Dad.
I know.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Listen, don't pick on your dad. He was in the Navy. He had clean drinking stories and no tattoos. Give him a break.
I'm giving him a break. That's why I'm doing the identification portion of that. Here we are, 50 years later, literally 50, actually longer, but is that how long it is? Almost 50 years later. And, I'm just pointing that out, that was pot. That was marijuana.
Yeah. So anyway, we ended up going, getting other rides. And we had one guy that picked us up in Shreveport, Alabama, or Shreveport, Louisiana.
Louisiana,
And
yeah.
he had to get to Dallas. He had to get to Dallas the next morning. So we were going, and he had a Ford Falcon car that he had the back seat loaded with stuff. So the three of us sat in the front seat. Of course, back then you didn't have seat belts, but he was going 100 miles an hour. And by
awesome.
then, by that time of the day, I was so tired. I kept falling asleep on his shoulder, and he kept pushing me away, saying, "Wake up, get away from me." So then he'd stop, and he'd go, I said, "Can we stop and get something to eat?" And he goes, "No, I'm only getting coffee, and we're back on the road." So he'd come back with a cup of coffee, and off we'd go again. We did that all night long. But when we finally got to Dallas, and we got rid of this guy that would go 100 miles an hour in this Ford Falcon.
But you're like going like a bat out of hell.
Oh, man.
Jumping in a car.
Meanwhile, you're asking the universe for a ride, and they're providing you with as much as they can, and you're getting rid of them one by one. These guys smell funny. This guy's going too fast. We need to get somewhere, but...
Angels might have been involved.
But by the time I got there, I still felt like I was moving. Even out of the car, I was in constant motion. I'm telling you. And then
that was the vibration of the earth, Nate.
The best thing.
No, that was a Nash. That's what that was.
Yeah, the last guy that picked us up was he was in a stretch limo.
Of course.
And we had changed from our regular civilian clothes to our Navy uniform so that we'd get picked up easier. It made all the difference in the world. So this guy picks us up, and he goes, "Oh, I am so happy I got you guys here." Of course, he had this southern drawl, and his, big old 100 gallon hat, and he'd sit there and go, "Oh, y'all gonna go very far?" He says, "I'm not going, but up here." And I said, "Well, that'd be perfect, That got us onto the road where we could at least phone call and say to somebody in Ardmore, "Come and get us," because it was in Ardmore, Oklahoma. To make a long story even longer.
Too late.
He was sitting.
But it's a good one.
He was sitting there, and he's going, "Would you boys like something to drink?" And he said, "Anything you'd like." He says, "Coke, water, would you like something stronger?" He opened up the bar. I said, "Oh, I'd love a scotch and water." So here it is, like 10 o'clock in the morning. We're sitting there drinking, scotch and water. And it was fantastic. He let us out, and we finally got to Ardmore. And
you were blitzed, though, weren't you? You were totally like.
By the time we got picked up from his mother came down and picked up. Actually, it was Ron's wife. His mother came and got her.
Does his fiance know about her? Or?
Well, yeah. Well,
okay.
Well, he wasn't married yet, but.
Oh, it was the one he was going to marry. Gotcha.
The one he was going to marry, yeah. Well, anyways, we ended up getting to Ardmore. And that's where the story becomes.
I had to tell you that story to tell you this story.
Yeah. Well, I did mine a little bit differently if people know you. I mean,
Keep going.
They're going to say, "Oh, he didn't steal what Brandon."
No. Just keep telling the story, Dad. You're doing great.
But we're sitting there in a restaurant, and Ron is telling me, he says, "Well, we got to go do this and we got to go do that," and he's telling me that we'd have to go here or do that, and I said, "Well, that's over on such and such a street." He's giving me these businesses that we had to go visit, and I went, "Okay, that's there." And then something else, and where the church was, where they were going to get married, I already knew that, and it was like like I had been there before.
Oh, like past life stuff?
Ooh. Oh, I had to have been there. Yeah.
Have you had any other experience with past life?
Well, I've had things that happen that I know that I've experienced it before, but I hadn't experienced it at the time. What I was experiencing. I know I experienced it before, and it's just little things that happen, but nothing to that magnitude with
So Oklahoma was like the big,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I'm sure I grew up there at one point in some life.
That's
And
crazy. That's crazy. So, and then you can always make the argument, did you absorb that from him? Like, did you tap into his knowledge and then somehow know it? Or was it a past life thing where you're like, I've lived here before?
well,
Could go either way, but it's kind of
but,
interesting.
but
Kind of interesting that you would
the
have that
strange
experience.
thing about Ron, he was a truck driver, and he drove truck, with trailers and goods all over the place, and he'd be coming into town, and I'd go to Terry and I'd say, Ron's going to be here in a day or two. We didn't have the cell phones back then. And
Right.
sure enough, there he'd be on the phone calling me saying, you got any beer? Because we had to drink a case of beer. Oh, PG, I'm sorry. But when he came into town, we had to do that.
no, a case between two people is about PG. It's okay.
Yeah, he drank most of it.
Yeah, but they would do it in 4 hours.
Listen, that is.
And they would get up 2 hours after that and then drive out of town.
This, of course, was the 70s, I think Nate was telling us.
Yeah, when he would
70s,
come
80s.
and visit us, it would be like early 80s, right? Mid 80s. I mean, I remember Ron, but
Yeah, I think.
You still had the mores. I'm not even saying the word right. You still have the idea of the previous decade, a few years into the next decade going on. So.
Oh yeah.
no, Ron just loved to drink.
Yeah, he did.
He was really good at that. If there was an Olympics, he would have been in it.
Mm-hmm.
So Nate, with that then, with you having had that experience, what was your initial reaction to, I know you told the story of Brandon at school. Was there anything before that Brandon had done, or like was there a series of events that occurred that made you start saying, hey, Brandon's got something here?
Well, he did see things that nobody else saw. He would make comments about the angels, or he'd say something, and of course, Terry would say, Mom would go, it's okay, Brandon. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm going, all right, let's go with it. It's okay. And of course, when kids will do that more now, or I notice it more now, where, there's a certain age that they'll actually be very much in tune with that. And if they're
what age, may I ask you, what age did you see that with Brandon? I don't want to interrupt you, but.
Well.
Do you know when?
I don't remember. I just know that it happened. I couldn't pinpoint an age, but, he had been like that for quite a while, even 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it was, I think being able to voice something, you have to be able to articulate a little bit better than a 1 or 2 year old. So I imagine 3 or 4, somewhere in that area. Today the 1 year olds can do the computer, and I'm sitting here trouble with it.
And that's your tech support now at this point, Dad.
I know.
Your grandkids are tech support. I actually remember seeing auras from, like, always seeing them, and I would traditionally see them in church easily. I would see them in other places, but I would see them easily in church. And I remember, just like he was recalling, I would say, hey, do you see that? I just see glows around people. I'd see it, I'd see it kind of expand around them. And and I even remember, seeing somebody that wasn't doing well. And I go, that person's really sick. And my mom's like, don't say stuff like that. We're just short of throwing maloikas at people, like, but she was definitely like, she was still encouraging it, but she's like, oh, don't go yelling that, so there was still a little bit of superstition in there, but it wasn't, I certainly wasn't told not to, let's put it that way.
So then you had like an encouraging kind of background, because sometimes, I mean, certain religions, they do kind of look at that like, ooh, that's scary, or don't go that path, that's the dark mark, or something like that.
One of them is Catholic.
Right, which is what, I mean, part of the show is. That's why it's interesting to find out, Nate, that you were, you were Lutheran and then converted to Catholicism, and then you are in this world of Catholicism and with the kids being raised and sent to Catholic school. There's a certain, my family, my mom's generation and my older siblings all went to Catholic school. I was the one that was like, man, we're not sending her. We just won't get
You
into
had an
that.
escape clause?
I did. I went to public school, but knowing the way in which they were raised, knowing the like staunch way things were, it's just surprising to hear that you guys were so supportive of Brandon and
I think it was almost by proxy. I don't even know if it was like, well, he's gifted, let's support him. It wasn't like that because I don't think anybody could define it
No.
then. Like
Well,
I was just weird.
It was a basic unknown of
Right.
where you came up with these, and I I think that one of the things was that Brandon and I always did things together, playing catch in the yard, throwing footballs, whatever, playing baseball with the neighborhood kids. We'd have them out. In fact, I remember one time my father visited us from out in Minnesota, and he got in a wiffle ball game too.
That was fun. I remember I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I mean, we always did things like that. And of course, I look back on those times, and I think that's probably one of the things that helped Brandon, so that he was normal all the way around. There wasn't anything real special other than he'd do things every once in a while.
Well, I think the only thing to say about that time is that, like, that time it wasn't normal to have a spiritual gift or to recognize it, whereas we're coming into an age where people are starting to recognize and realize that more. Have you ever had to really, for some people, discern whether or not they should be allowed near Brandon? Like almost like you were his, no, really, like almost
Keep
like
your hands away from his mouth.
almost like you were his like boundary protector, or like just, have you ever had to discern who'd be allowed to be let known about his spiritual gift?
Oh, at this level, I'm happy to tell anybody if they'll listen to me. I mean, I'm.
Well, even as a child, at first as a child, yeah.
Yeah, well, as a child, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't prominent. It wasn't the thing that people were looking at that, or even had a grasp on, that this is what it was. It was an unknown, and there were people that were, they do readings and stuff like that, but with the cards, the tarot cards, they started coming out, and and people would do things like that.
They started coming out.
Yeah, you know what I mean, Brandon.
And here's one for you. I just pulled the Queen of Pentacles. There you go.
But I mean, they're not. People are not always what they appear to be.
There you go.
So
but
you really have to watch out. And they were not. Most of them that were out, they're out to make a buck. That was it.
Well, but it's, I mean, I struggled with that when I first started doing this. It's like, what do you charge, and, everything else, having a family business. By the way, I was actually very much disqualified from the family business because I'm colorblind. I could not become a gemologist. I would never be able to pass the test. So,
but you're still playing with crystals.
Ironic. Well, if you want to go there with that, I mean, on my mother's father, my grandfather, he was an optometrist that had a jewelry store. I work with my third eye, and I have a crystal shop.
Well,
just going to go ahead and give you that one.
In your grandfather's father's will, they had the stores split up, half being jewelry, half being the optometry, and they put more emphasis that the optometry was going to make it and the jewelry wasn't going to further down the road. So all of the inheritance went to the side that had the optometry rather than the jewelry, and the jewelry outlasted the optometry. So
Look at that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Nate, what advice would you give to parents of gifted children? Knowing what you do now, what would you say to them?
That's a tough question because I don't know if I could relate to letting them know what exactly to do, but I would say more of, don't struggle with being against it. Let it happen more than, you know, you certainly can't cultivate something like that. It's going to happen more so than anything. And, unless there's something really weird going on, but, most of the time it's not.
Well, in a weird sort of way, that's actually great advice. And I think if I could say it from what I talk about with, indigo children, which, by the way, stay tuned for another podcast on that. But the, indigo children, indigo parenting, like it really literally is keep them safe, show them foundation, and get out of the way. Like, it's like if you get too vested, if you try and steer this the wrong way or the right way or influence it, you're just gonna make it tougher on them. Get out of the way. Make sure they're fed. Make sure they're supported. Make sure they feel like, they have value in the family. All those things, and then get out of the way. Get out of the way, right? So that's kind of cool.
Are we supposed to get out of the way?
Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Well, I think what happens is that a lot of people get so vested in what their kid. I mean, we all want our kids to be happy, healthy, find someone to love, find a career that they're happy with, be subsistent, move out. That's another big thing. At some point, whether they're 13 or 3, at some point you look at them and you're like, you're a bit of a freeloader. We gotta, when am I gonna get something back from this than $1,200 from the government every year?
Yeah, more than the remote control. Hey kid, get me the remote. You're closer. No.
Yeah, right.
Come here.
All boundaries.
All right, Nate, one more question. What advice would you give to students developing intuition about maybe their support structure, or for some of them, I know they've been facing a lack of a support structure at home. What advice could you give that is sage?
That's an interesting question. I think it's rather difficult to say to somebody that if they're treated badly, you need to seek somebody's attention. If they're treated badly, if they're not treated badly, and they're just not being helped to get where they need to be, like helping with homework or expect to have rules, expect to have things that you need to do, expect to be part of the family. If somehow you're being looked at, and you've got any special gift and somebody doesn't really want to help you with it, you need to find somebody that will help you. And, schools help in those instances, and
Spirit tree.
even spirit trees, or even a thing called religion can help. I mean,
wow.
They can have an aura.
Well, religion tends to put the governor on it, but that doesn't mean that you don't come from it. And I say this all the time: forsake nothing that you've been through or that you've learned, because it's important to your foundation. But if you go into that, like if I was to walk in and say, okay, after today's mass, everyone, little Brandon Russ will be in the back, and he's going to give you a 3-card reading. Probably not going to go over well.
No.
I mean, that's just me. That was my experience. My experience was much more direct.
Well, I think it's also harder when you have such a strong foundation put into you, and God love the Catholic Church. I know I do, but they are just so like, this is how it is. And, like for years, I could be in the worst mood, but I needed to go to the building to have mass. And
Mhm.
it wasn't until more recent times that we couldn't go to the building that I was like, I get the whole concept. We are the church. The people are the people that have to live the doctrines and stuff. But, it's ingrained. Like, I'm going to have a bad week because I didn't go.
Yeah.
There's certain things to that. So like when you are trying to open your spirituality, when you're trying to seek truths that through reading and histories and philosophies that are out there, and you have people around you that are like, oh, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, you shouldn't do that. It comes at a difficult time to be able to balance your route with where your third eye is leading you, to see
Mhm.
the bigger picture and things. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it's admirable that Nate was such a support to be able to say, hey, something's
yeah,
going on.
yeah, even when there
Butterfly.
could be conflict to it. It's funny. I mean, my experience with this, and this kind of still fits into the whole root conversation, because I was very active in the church, in the Catholic Church. I used to teach confirmation, and they said to me, hey, what, whether it was, hey, he's a bright kid, he's committed, whatever. I don't understand the logic of where I was doted on, but I was. And so I took that and I started to kind of create a curriculum that really introduced other worldviews. And whether you can call me silly or foolish if you want, but I'm here to tell you that it was without a doubt the absolute deal breaker when you say next week's confirmation class will be about alternate religions, and we want you to look up those alternate religions so we can intelligently speak about how they contrast with Catholicism. So when you make that decision to join the church, you are making an informed decision. That was the last class I ever taught. So, it's still based in my root. I wasn't forsaking it. I was just, I was a boundary pusher because but I wasn't doing it to be nefarious. I was a kid. I never got in trouble growing up. I never, I wasn't a kid that, with drinking or drugs or any of that stuff. Like, and it wasn't because I was trying to be a goody two shoes. I was just like, yeah, I maybe drank a few times, but it wasn't like I was drinking. I
And you're
did it.
picking on your dad for his ports
he
stories.
he drank more with Ron than I have in my entire life, and that's if I somehow fell off a wagon I was never on and started drinking today to the end of my
But
days.
you
Like,
but
I
you
would
jump
not.
off roofs. Okay. Okay.
I'm just telling you, but
He's right. There's no doubt
they
about
were
that.
they were pro
Well,
TC. They were pro, and more so Ron. I
he
you
was
know.
he was as skinny as a stick.
Oh, of course.
Boom.
He was a great guy, though. I mean, he was the type of guy that, like, when he would show up into town, he goes, he, I never forget it. He looked at me, and I was probably like 6 or 7. He looks at my dad, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I still can't believe he made one." Like, he was like that was him. He goes, "I can't believe he made one. Congratulations to the two of you." And then he would sit me down in this big rig, and here I am, 6, 7, 8 years old, sitting there in a big rig. And he goes, "You know what this is? This is a gear shift. This is first. This is second. This is whatever." And then you got to pull up the clutch so that then you can move it into ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, and you got to move it here, move it there. He goes, "You never touch the brakes. If you do it the right way, you never touch the brakes. You just downshift all the way down." Like, I mean, that was the type of guy he was. He would just show you, like, he was fascinated with stuff like that and Schlitz. So he was all about the Schaefer circle. I'm just telling you, that's the way it was. But cool. Well, listen, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna come back. We're gonna do a couple of really fun things. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do, as you guys know, and I've talked about it a couple of times. My sense of humor, it's kind of, my dad's always been an influence on that. I've often said that my dad would have made it to the Tonight Show if he could have gotten through a joke without laughing at it himself. But my memories of growing up were about, like, always kind of talking about comedy, telling each other jokes, whether it was knocked-out jokes, whether it was whatever. And one of our favorites was Abbott and Costello. And for the first time, maybe the second, he and I are going to be Abbott and Costello. And then after that, we're going to do a dad joke off where we're going to try and make each other laugh. and have a lot of fun with it. So listen, stay tuned, and please, a word from our sponsor.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Russ. You already know I love to talk, but did you also know that I love to create music and soundscapes? Well, my latest CD, Sanctuary, is going to be out June 12th. This CD was created as part of my journey. It has soothing piano, sound bowls, and guitar. I really enjoyed making this, and it is part of my journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the soundscapes that are created. Some of them have very specific flow to them, while others are very kind of just meditative. I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed making it. Sanctuary, a meditative space, is now available at iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and other great online music centers. Thank you again. See you soon. And wherever your journey takes you, remember to keep going.
Stella. All right, so you ready? Tracey, you have anything to add for this? Like, do you know this bit? Do you know this routine? Who's
Yes,
on first?
I've heard this before. Yeah.
What's wrong?
No,
you're like smirking, like as in like I can't believe I'm doing like old 30s comedy.
It doesn't give you thrills every time you hear it?
Like you're not sitting here going, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear this again.
The Baseball Hall of Fame has the film running constantly in one of the rooms where they have trophies and uniforms and stuff like that.
How many times have we been to the Hall of Fame together?
I don't know, a dozen maybe.
Yeah. We'd like lose a whole day in there.
Yep. I like to go back again soon.
See,
I liked it.
I liked baseball going to a game because it was exciting. Watching someone watch it on TV with the remote in their hand falling asleep is not my idea of excitement.
I didn't think I ever fell asleep. But anyways. All right, you ready? All right, so I'm Abbott, you're Costello. Don't get it wrong. All right. I should probably get my glasses. Can you see? I can't see. Jose, can you see?
I can see. You got more light than I do.
What does that mean? Do you want more light?
Mother always liked you more.
Hold on a second, everybody. Okay, who do I have to blame for having to wear these? Just mom or dad?
Your mother. I didn't have to start wearing them until I was 39.
39.
Yeah.
Well, I at least made it to 45.
Well, there you go. But if you're worried about what you need for eye care, I've got contacts.
I was raised on this, everyone. Raised on this.
I couldn't
you can't even wait for the next segment. You got to dive in now.
Well,
I think it's great that I'm Abbott because I'm the tall, skinny one.
Yeah, but Tracey's judging us even as we speak. Why? Because that's what she's here for. And she's already told me I got it hands down. I mean, you know.
You weren't supposed to tell him that.
I don't have a funny bone in my body.
Here we go. All right, you ready?
Who?
First base. Will Costello, I'm going to New York with you. Am I on the right page?
Yep.
Okay. Take two. Well, Costello, I'm going to New York with you. You know, Bucky Harris, the Yankees manager, gave me a job as a coach as long as you're on the team.
Look, Abbott, if you're the coach, you must know all the players.
Right, I certainly do.
Well, I never met the guys, so you'll have to tell me their names, and then I'll know who's playing on the team.
Oh, well, I'll tell you their names. But, you know, as strange as it seems, you get these ball players nowadays, peculiar names, different names.
You mean funny names?
Strange names, pet names, like Dizzy Dean and
His brother Daffy?
Daffy Dean.
And their French cousin?
French?
Goofy.
Goofy Dean. I see. Well, let's see. We have on the bag who's on first, what's on second, and I don't know who's on third.
That's what I want to find out.
I say who's on first and what's on second, and I don't know who's on third.
Are you the manager?
I am.
You going to be the coach too?
Sure.
And you don't know the fellow's name?
Well, I should.
Well, then is on first?
Yes.
I mean, the fellow's name.
Who?
The guy on first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing first base.
Who is on first?
I'm asking you, who's on first?
That's the man's name.
That's whose name?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead and tell me.
that's it.
That's who.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, you got a first baseman?
Certainly.
Who's playing first?
That's right.
When you pay off the first baseman every month, who gets the money?
Every dollar of it.
All I'm trying to find out is the fellow's name on first base.
Who?
The guy that gets the money.
That's it.
Who gets the money on first base?
He does, every dollar. Sometimes his wife comes down and picks it up.
Whose wife?
Yes. What's wrong with that?
Look, all I want to know is when you sign up the first baseman, how does he sign his name to the contract?
Who?
The guy.
Who?
How does he sign it?
That's how he signs it.
Who?
Yes.
All I'm trying to find out is what's the guy's name on first base?
No. What's on second base?
I'm not asking who's on second.
Who is on first?
One base at a time.
Well, don't change the players around.
I'm not changing nobody.
Take it easy, buddy. Well,
All I'm asking you, who's the guy on first base?
that's right.
Okay.
All right. I just went full Fallon. Sorry about that.
What's the guy's name on first base?
No, what is on second base?
I'm asking you, who's on second?
Who is on first?
I don't know.
Oh, he's on third. We're not talking about him right now. Let's go back to first.
Now, how did I get on third base?
Well, you mentioned his name.
If I mentioned the third baseman's name, who did I say playing third?
No, who is on first?
What's on first?
What's on second?
I don't know.
He's on third.
There I go, back on third again. Will you stay on third base and don't get off it?
All right, what do you want to know?
Now, who's playing third base?
Why do you insist on putting who on third base?
What am I putting on third?
No, what is on second?
You don't want who on second.
No, who is on first?
I don't know.
Third base! Timing!
Look, you got outfielder?
Sure.
The left fielder's name?
Why?
I just thought I'd ask you.
Well, I thought I'd just tell you.
Then tell me who's playing in left field.
Who is playing first?
I'm not. Stay out of the infield. I want to know. What's the guy's name in left field?
What is on second?
I'm not asking who's on second.
No, who is on first?
I don't know.
Third base. See, that says both right there.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second. I'll go back to that. No, who is on first?
I don't know.
It says both together. Ready? Third base. Hey, there we go. Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah, but you said it loud enough for both of us. And left field, and the left fielder's name?
Why?
Because.
Oh, no. He's center field. Well, that's the fellow's name.
Look, you got a pitcher?
Sure.
The pitcher's name?
Tomorrow.
You don't want to tell me today?
I'm telling you then.
Well, go ahead.
Tomorrow.
What time?
What time what?
At what time tomorrow are you going to tell me Who's pitching?
Now listen, who is not pitching? Who is on?
I'll break your arm, you say who's on first. I want to know. What's the pitcher's name?
What's on second?
I don't know.
Third base! Oh, almost right there. Just kind of splice that edit. You were going to ask me about the catcher?
Got a catcher?
Certainly.
And the catcher's name?
Today.
Today? And tomorrow's pitching?
Now you've got it.
All we got is a couple of days on the team. You know, I'm a catcher too.
Yeah, so they tell me.
I get behind the plate, do some fancy catching. Tomorrow's pitching on my team, and a heavy hitter gets up.
Yes?
Now the heavy hitter bunts the ball. When he bunts the ball, me being a good catcher, I want to throw the guy out at first base. So I pick up the ball and throw it to who?
Now that's the first thing you've said right.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Well, that's all you have to do.
Is throw the ball to first?
Yes,
Now who's got it?
naturally.
Look, if I throw the ball to first base, somebody's got to get it. Now who has it?
Naturally.
Who?
Naturally.
Naturally?
Naturally.
So I pick up the ball and throw it to naturally.
No, you don't. You throw it to who?
Naturally.
That's different.
That's what I said.
But you're not saying that.
I throw the ball to naturally.
No, you throw the ball to who?
Naturally.
That's it.
That's what I said.
Listen, you are the one that asked me.
I throw the ball to who?
Naturally.
Now you ask me.
You throw the ball to who?
Naturally.
That's it.
Same as you.
You just change them around.
Same as you. I throw the ball to who? Whoever it is drops the ball, and the guy runs to second. Who picks up the ball? Throws it to what? What throws it to? I don't know. Throws it back to tomorrow. Triple play.
Yes.
Another guy gets up, and it's a long fly ball to because. Why? I don't know. He's on third, and I don't give a darn.
Oh, wait. What?
I said I don't give a darn.
Oh, that's our shortstop.
Ugh.
We're going to be right back, everybody. That was awesome. It was pretty good.
I know.
That was fun.
Because I didn't.
Oh, you were fine.
Yeah, but it
You were
did
fine.
say both.
So, Tracey, I'm still recording. I just don't want to lose anything. I can splice this stuff out. Was our sound good? I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you guys, as you got passionate, you got on the microphone, but that's why
fine.
I muted myself.
That's cool. All right. Now, the name of the game, get rid of this. That was great. That was really
It
good.
was better the second time.
It was way better that time. It's amazing what happens when you get a... Oh, that was me. Sorry. Don't come in here.
Help!
The smudge.
That's why we smudge. All right.
Oh my God.
All right. So we're going to act like we're coming back. Ugh.
Are we playing dominoes
That was
again?
fun. No. You'll see. All right, everybody. So, welcome back. Thank you so much, Tracey. How did you enjoy that last segment? I mean, you didn't have to do a whole lot. Were we at least somewhat entertaining?
That was passionate. The both of you reading that.
What were some of the other bits we could have done?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think you could have done anything but Abbott and Costello, the two of
I
them.
know, right? Because I'm tall and thin.
Well, it's fitting this time of year because we haven't had any baseball. Maybe if
Right.
people know that it's there, they might enjoy it.
First base. So,
Who
listen. One more thing, and I thought this would be a great way to really kind of wrap it up. My dad and I, we get into fits of laughter. We always, whenever we're around, and by the way, most of the time it's completely inappropriate. It's usually, bodily function jokes or bodily function jokes. I mean, we're not very deep. We're not deep as a family.
Pull my finger was one of the things.
You're right. Listen, it fell for it till I was 15. But, it's what's funny is kind of the whole thing of sometimes my sisters and I would joke around and be like, I got a good one for Dad. And then my dad would say to everybody else, like, oh, I got a good one. I gotta go see Brandon. I gotta tell him this one. And what's funny, and I mentioned it earlier, my dad absolutely would have made it to Carson had he just pulled it together long enough to get through one of his jokes. Like, he would just start laughing in the middle of it. So those of you that have seen, like, when two people kind of spar off and tell dad jokes, it's all in the delivery, because they're all typically bad and you kind of sort of see them coming. And even when you don't, they're like smart funny, but they're more groaners or laughter, but kind of like nervous laugh, like, did you just say that? So on these 2 pieces of paper that are evenly distributed, we have a handful of dad jokes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth. And again, I've seen them, but I don't care which one. I haven't worked on any of them. I've only seen them to make sure that they have the exact same number close. And, but I'm going to give him the opportunity to go ahead and pick which one he's going to read, and I'll read the other one. And we're going to go back and forth. We're going to try and make each other laugh, but we've got to have our delivery down. So we've got to kind of make sure that we say it the right way, or we do it the right way, or whatever. And we've got to be completely engaged while the other person says it. So Tracey, your task in all of this is to, like, give us a grade. Like, how many times I make him laugh, and then the one time he makes me laugh.
Oh, I have to keep score then.
Or
Is that wrong?
Tracey, you can just keep score how many times I make you laugh.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
So, like, like whatever your scoring system is, just make sure he doesn't win. So go ahead, Dad. You're going to pick that one. And by the way, I totally feel one of the favorite movies in my house growing up was The Princess Bride. I actually wanted him to pick that one, so I put it near his right hand, and I almost wanted to say, like, you only think you wanted that one. Hey, it's inconceivable.
Oh, I was just going to say inconceivable.
It is inconceivable.
You only think that I think that you think.
But only less known.
As you wish,
The land war in Europe.
As you wish.
So, and to precursor this is part of the reason why I love the fact that my dad introduces me now. For the funny, you should say that. And part of the reason that I learned growing up that, my dad mentioned, he didn't come from a whole lot. And, when you're a family business, you don't have a whole lot. I don't care if it's jewelry or whatever. You just don't have a ton growing up, but you can always have a good time. We always found good times in all of this. So that's where I developed a lot of my sense of humor from. And, so when he introduces me and he comes up and he, says a few jokes and talks about growing up and that sort of thing, you want to say one of them right now?
No.
Okay. Because save it, you might need it.
Well, I'll be ready.
But humor and laughter always raises the vibration, and I learned it from my dad. I learned it from my mom. I learned it from my sisters, who we would joke around for days and hours, and we would just, make fun of things or do corny things to one another. That kind of sense of humor is how I came to be with this. So that was my proving ground. So thank you for being part of this. I'm about to kick your ass. Can I say that? Can you edit that out? All right. So, age before beauty?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, Nate's got one.
That doesn't count.
It does
not count.
I just did one. I got to laugh.
All right, that's your first one. Oh, man. I seriously have not read these, so I need my glasses. All right, you ready? You got to look at me as I say this. You ready? Did you hear about the guy who invented the knock-knock joke? He won a Nobel Prize.
Good. My wife is really mad at the fact that I have no sense of direction. So I packed up my stuff and write.
All right, that was okay. That was all right. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
You ready? I'm laughing at my own.
I'm waiting.
All right.
I'm waiting.
You ready? People say that when they get to pick their nose, but I feel like I was just born with mine.
That's good.
I know, right?
That's good.
Go ahead.
You can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friends. Oh, no.
You can pick your friends, but you can't pick
Never
your
mind.
friends' nose. First base! First base!
They're on second.
I don't know.
How do you get a squirrel to like you?
I don't know. How do I get a squirrel to like me?
You act like a nut.
Oh, can I not? How do I not see that coming?
It's like the old almond bar, you know?
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
All right, here we go. You ready?
Mm.
What do you call an elephant that doesn't matter?
Elephant, I know.
An irrelevant.
An irrelevant here.
See, you're just adding things onto that. You're completely ruining it. Like, my punchline was great.
I heard
You're
that.
just like piling on. You're like first base. I'm like, that's not even the joke. Am I wrong? Help me out here, TC. What's going on with this? Do we screen anybody for this show? Go ahead. You're next.
So why don't eggs tell jokes?
Why don't eggs tell jokes?
They crack each other up.
Nothing. That was actually pretty good.
Put the yolks on you.
See, that's the part that kept you from Carson. Right there. Like that right there. You were like, they crack each other up.
The yoke's on you.
The yolk side. Phew! Like you just went there. All right, my turn. You ready?
You know what, squirrels? Never mind.
There. 4 score. All right. What do you get from a pampered cow? Pampered cow. Spoiled milk. I like that one. That was good. All right, go ahead. I can't help it.
I don't.
Laughing already. I can't help it.
I don't.
I'm just watching you struggle with this because you're like,
I don't trust stairs.
you don't trust stairs?
Yeah, they're always up to something.
Oh, my turn. It's inappropriate to make a dad joke if you're not a dad because it's a faux pas.
I like that one.
Delivery. You got to. All right, go ahead.
Did you see my shirt?
Did you see this?
It says dad.
A couple of dads. I can't even get you to the joke, and I'm already laughing. Go ahead.
Okay. What do you call someone with no body and no nose?
No body and no nose. No, something about faceless. Go ahead.
Nobody knows.
The best part is that you could. He laughed too. See, he laughed too. Oh God. I'm going to look deep into the camera for this one, but I want you to listen to everything I have to say. I like telling dad jokes, and sometimes he laughs.
Did
Did you hear that? It was nothing.
I heard crickets.
Go ahead.
you hear the rumor about the butter?
The rumor about the butter. What's the rumor about the butter?
Well, I'm not going to spread it.
Well done. How do lawyers say goodbye to one another? We'll be suing you.
Suing you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever.
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself?
I don't know.
It was too tired.
Great visual with that. Like, that nailed it. Nailed it.
Tired.
All right, since we're doing visuals. Hey, you want to hear a joke about paper? Never mind. It's terrible. How'd I do? Is that okay? How's that for timing?
That one's okay, but I wanted that.
You can have mine. Here's the good news. Oh, I just ripped off your parts. Here's my parts. Go ahead.
This graveyard looks overcrowded.
People are dying to get in here.
That's pretty much the punchline. I mean, people must
Ding,
be
ding, ding,
dying
ding.
to get in. Okay.
They won't bury me in the cemetery. You know why?
Because you're alive.
Because I'm not dead yet. Go ahead. Because I'm not dead yet.
Oh,
Let's do the rest in British accents. Go. This one you have to do in British accents.
I say there. What time did the man go to the dentist?
What time did the dentist?
2:30.
2:30.
2:30.
That's the perfect one to do in a British accent. Just you can't trust atoms. They make up everything.
They do. How many tickles does it take to make an octopus laugh?
How many tickles? Probably 8 for each armpit.
10 tickles.
That is so an 8-year-old joke.
It works though.
He
laughed.
He nailed it. He kind of nailed it. Hey, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
Apparent.
Did you just groan at a dad joke? You just groaned at a dad joke. Got it.
What concert costs 45 cents?
Oh, I've heard this one before. 50 Cent with Nickelback.
Yeah, featuring Nickelback.
Have you heard Nickelback? Do you know who 50 Cent is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because you're like, you don't have any tattoos. How do you know him?
I keep my ears open.
And how do you know Nickelback? I know you're through with standing in line. The clubs you'd never get in.
I didn't want any change.
The bottom of the ninth, and you're never gonna get in.
I didn't want any change, so I said it's a Nickelback.
Moving on. Can I move on? Can I move this on?
It's your turn.
I love how you muted yourself because you're just like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to add to this in any way, shape, or form. Okay. All right. So, all right, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
I wouldn't buy anything with Velcro. It's a ripoff. Go ahead.
Stuck on you. Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Because he was outstanding in his field. I just thought somebody looking, they'd want to know.
You know what the best part is like she's in the other room and we can hear her laughing. Like we can't hear her through the screen, but we can hear her laughing like that. That's legit laugh, by the way. All right. Are you happy he got that list, by the way? Yeah, okay. All right, so well, what is an astronaut's favorite part of the computer? It would be the space bar. Hey!
Ding, 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 ding,
Really?
Ding, 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 ding,
Really?
ding.
You're biting your inner lip, I can tell. You're like chewing on it. You're like, I'm gonna laugh.
I made a pencil with 2 erasers. It was pointless.
I love that joke. That joke is like so good. It's like, I actually think that's like one of the best dad jokes. Like if we had to rank them, wouldn't you rank that in the top 5?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, come on.
That's like the dog walking down the street, saw inside and say wet paint, so he did.
See, remember the bodily fluid functions? All right, okay. Why are elevator jokes so classic and good? Because they work on many levels.
They do have their ups and downs.
They do. I was waiting for it. All right, Otis, you're next.
I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. It's difficult to put down. Oh, come on.
Why do bees have sticky hair? Because they use a honeycomb.
Honeycomb.
Because the comb and the honey. All right. How many more you got there?
None.
All right. Well, you knew I didn't get these right. So now we're into like bonus time. And I'm going to go ahead and say 2 of these. Which state has the most streets? Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, yes, they do.
Why does Snoop Dogg always carry an umbrella? Faux drizzle. See, that's how I'm relevant. Right there. I'm able to make jokes with that.
With that, thank God you have the bonus round, Brandon, because you now have 7, your dad has 8, and your dad made me laugh 5 times. So your dad technically has 13.
How about that, huh?
I'm sorry.
Good number.
What are you sorry for? Oh, how do I get out of this?
I was shooting for 14.
You were shooting for 14, and then you ended up, well, so what you're saying is you didn't win.
Yeah, I did.
All right. Well, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad you're my dad. I chose you for a reason.
I was ahead and way longer than.
You won the freaking lottery with me. Who are you kidding?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I love doing this. I hope you found it remotely entertaining. You know, and like I said, I'm so glad you're my dad. I chose you long before you even knew. And moreover, though, I think it's really important that, you know, people have a great Father's Day. Remember to honor, you know, your loved ones. If they're with you, you know, give them a hug. If you, you know, if you can't hug them, give them a call. If they pass along, if they pass before you, then honor them in some way. Do something that you thoroughly enjoy. Do something that you connect with, whether it's with your kids or something in your honor, or just anything. Just make it part of this, because it's part of your root and it's part of who you are, and you should never forsake it, and you should never get away from it. So that's why we should honor our parents. By the way, I don't agree with them all the time. Do I agree with you?
No.
Ever?
No, a lot.
No. Well,
but you don't agree all the time.
That makes 14, Nate. Great job.
Yeah. Listen, I don't agree with you all the time.
I know.
But I respect everything that you do.
Well,
and
isn't
everything you
that
say.
what it's all about?
Yeah.
Les, this is how we're going out. Who's the greatest baseball player of all time?
Who's the greatest baseball player of all time? I know what you're going to say.
Who am I going to say?
Kirby Puckett.
Pretty much.
I think that Mickey Mantle would get my vote.
Really? Over Killebrew?
Yeah.
Really?
Killebrew was amazing, but Mantle was.
Really thought you were going to go Killebrew on that. The worst psychic ever. I don't even know this man.
Well, Killebrew, I could have told you that. That's what happened in Port when he was in the Navy.
There you go. And who said you could join in with that one? What the hell's up with that? That was funny. That was funnier than the rest of this crap.
Drink.
All right, guys, but listen, have a great day. Honor your root, honor your fathers. Congratulations to all fathers out there. Thanks so much, and thanks for being such great kids to those fathers. And remember to keep going. We'll see you on the next Everyday Intuition. Keep going. Thanks again, TC.
Thank you.
Da, 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 da.
Good.